finally, what we all have been waiting for and calling for and questioning why it wasn't happening. Stephanie White has stepped up to the plate in defense.
Finally, someone with power actually said it out loud. Stephanie White, head coach of the Indiana Fever, just did what everyone else in the WNBA has been too scared to do. She called out the entire league, the players, the commissioner, the media
of Caitlin Clark. I could not believe my ears, guys. I could not believe my ears when I heard this. Stephanie White actually being bold enough to stand on business and protect Caitlin Clark.
Everyone for using Caitlin Clark like a chess piece in their political games. And she didn't whisper it. She didn't dance around it. She said it with her whole chest, calmly, deliberately, and brutally honest. This isn't just another coach defending.
Not her speaking herself. And I think this is a really interesting one. And it's clear from this answer, I've already listened to this. It's very clear from this answer that Stephanie White clearly, and Caitlin Clark, there's clearly a level of person, like they clearly really like each other.
Her star player. This is a veteran of the game who's watched the WNBA since day one, telling everyone to stop the madness before it destroys the very future they're all fighting for. And trust me, when you hear what she said,
disrespecting, and we can't,
you're going to realize this changes everything. So what exactly happened? Stephanie White sat down for an interview that's now making waves across every corner of women's basketball. The topic, the ongoing chaos around the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement negotiations, the constant finger-pointing, and yes, Caitlin Clark's name being dragged into every single conversation, even though she's barely said a word.
Then Caitlin Clark kind of getting brought into that, Caitlin Clark responding to it. What has been your overall assessment of that dialogue and as it relates to your star player?
Yeah, I mean,
White looked straight into the camera and said something that sent shockwaves through the league. Quote, "I hate it all for Caitlin. She's a 23-year-old kid who loves to play this game, and she's a pawn in a lot of other people's games. Let that sink in for a second. A pawn, not a player, not a star, a pawn." That one line cut deeper than any rant or explosion.
Yeah, I mean, I hate it all for Caitlin. I feel like, she's a 23-year-old kid who loves to play this game, who is a pawn in a lot of other people's games and a lot of other people's narratives, and I hate that for her.
Ever could, because it's the truth, and everyone knows it. Stephanie White didn't come in hot with accusations and attacks. No. She did something far more dangerous for the league. She spoke calmly, rationally, and laid out the facts like she was reading a checklist of failures. And that's what makes this so powerful. When you yell, people can dismiss you as emotional. But
for her, we're coming into a time in the WNBA where we're kind of part of the growing pains of becoming quote-unquote mainstream professional sport.
You calmly explain how messed up things are. There's nowhere to hide. White pointed out that Caitlin Clark has become the centerpiece of every argument in the WNBA, whether it's about player salaries, TV ratings, media favoritism, or even officiating. Her name is always in the mix. Always. And the wildest part,
where we wanted insurance all year long, to now where it is growing and players do deserve more, and leadership needs to reflect where we are as a league, and also
Caitlin herself has barely said anything controversial this season. She's kept her head down, played her game, and let her performance do the talking. Yet somehow she's been pulled into every feud, every debate, every controversy, like she's personally responsible for every problem in the league. And Stephanie White, she's had enough. When she says Caitlin's being used as a pawn, she's not just calling out one group. She's calling out everyone. The players who bring up her
understand where we are as a league and where players' perspectives are coming from, and we have coaches on the sidelines in Becky Hammond and myself, and of course Noelle Quinn, who was in Seattle.
To leverage better contracts. The commissioner who uses her face to sell the league, but won't protect her on the court. The media that writes her name in every headline to get clicks. Every single side is using Caitlin Clark to push their own agenda. And White sees it clear as day. Because here's the thing, Caitlin Clark is the biggest name women's basketball has ever seen at this point. She's the ratings machine. She's the ticket seller. She's the headline magnet. When someone brings in that much attention, it becomes really easy for everyone else to latch on and ride the wave. But it's gotten out of hand. It's gotten ridiculous. Every time a player criticizes the league, Caitlin's name gets dragged in. Every time the WNBA releases a new policy, it's immediately compared to how it affects Caitlin. She's not even treated like a person anymore. She's become a marketing strategy, a talking point, a symbol everyone uses to fight their battles. And that's exactly what Stephanie White is tired of seeing. She's watched Caitlin all season long, taking physical hits on the court, taking verbal hits off of it, and somehow handling it all without snapping. But here's the reality that White is screaming without raising her voice. No one should have to carry the weight of an entire league's politics at 23 years old. No one. When White says pawn, she means it literally. The WNBA uses Caitlin to sell tickets and boost their TV deals. The players use her name to demand better contracts and more respect. The media uses her for content and clicks. And the fans? They just end up watching a league that feels more like a reality show than a basketball competition. But Stephanie White isn't just speaking as a protective coach. She's speaking as someone who's been around since the league's earliest days, when the WNBA was fighting for basic things like healthcare and year-round pay. She was there when players were just happy to have a league at all. Now, players want what they've earned. More money, more control, more respect. And they deserve it. But the leadership is still stuck in the past, playing catch-up and fumbling every opportunity to get it right. White made it crystal clear when she said, leadership needs to reflect where we are as a league. Translation, the people in charge are out of touch. She didn't say Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's name out loud, but she didn't have to. Everyone listening knew exactly who she was talking about, because at this point, every single controversy in the WNBA somehow circles back to the commissioner's office. And let's be real, Kathy Engelbert has been in the hot seat for months now. From dismissing players' concerns to making tone-deaf comments about Caitlin's off-court earnings, she's managed to upset both the fans and the players at the same time. So when Stephanie White says the league needs better leadership, that's the most polite way of saying, get your act together, you'll ever hear from someone this respected. And honestly, she's right. How many times have we watched the WNBA mishandle something that should have been simple? Inconsistent refereeing that lets some players get mauled while others get phantom calls. Communication breakdowns between the league office and the players. Fines that make absolutely no sense. It's like the people running things have no idea how to handle success. Because, yes, the WNBA is growing, but it's growing because of the players, not because of the suits in the office. Stephanie White even said it herself. Your employees are your number one asset. The players are the league. They're the ones putting their bodies on the line. They're the ones bringing in the fans. Yet somehow, they're the ones who constantly feel disrespected, ignored, and used. Let's rewind a bit to get the full picture. A few weeks ago, Nafisa Collier went off on Kathy Engelbert in a way that stopped everyone in their tracks. She accused the commissioner of bad leadership and even claimed that Kathy told Caitlin Clark she should be grateful for the WNBA platform. That was massive. That was the kind of accusation that should have gotten an immediate, direct response. Instead, Kathy dropped the most robotic corporate, I'm disheartened statement you've ever seen, and basically pretended nothing was wrong. Then Sophie Cunningham joined the party and flat out called Kathy the most delusional leader our league has ever seen. Lexi Hull backed up Collier. Becky Hammon threw shade about officiating. And now Stephanie White, the calm one, the measured one, is also stepping up and speaking out. If that doesn't show you how deep the frustration runs in that locker room and on those sidelines, then nothing will. But let's get back to Caitlin, because this is really about her. She's barely said anything controversial about any of this. When reporters asked her about Nafisa Collier's comments, you know what she said? I have great respect for Fee. She made a lot of valid points. That's it. She didn't pick a side. She didn't throw fuel on the fire. She stayed neutral, respectful, and moved on. Yet her name stayed in the headlines for weeks because people just can't stop attaching her to every single issue. And you can hear it in Stephanie White's voice. She hates that. She feels protective of Caitlin, not just as her player, but as a human being. She knows the pressure that comes with being the face of the league, especially when you never asked for that title in the first place. Because here's the truth. Caitlin didn't ask to be the face of the WNBA. The league handed it to her. They saw the ratings jump when she played. They saw the sold-out arenas. They saw the headlines. And they said, yep, she's our golden ticket. But now when things go wrong, when the league fumbles or when players get upset, guess who also becomes the scapegoat? Caitlin Clark. That's the messed up part that Stephanie White is calling out without holding back. She's basically saying, stop using Caitlin Clark as your shield. If you have problems with the CBA, deal with them directly. If you're mad about leadership, say that. But don't turn every single debate into the Caitlin Clark conversation just because her name gets attention. And here's the sad part. It's not going to stop anytime soon. Why? Because Caitlin equals money, and money talks louder than anything else in professional sports. But there's a twist to all of this that the league hasn't figured out yet. The more they use her name, the more fans are starting to turn against the WNBA itself. People aren't stupid. They can see when the league is using Caitlin's image to cover up its own failures. Remember earlier this season when referees let her get thrown around on the court, and the league said absolutely nothing? Then, when the backlash got loud, suddenly they started issuing statements about player safety and protecting stars. Yeah, that's exactly what Stephanie White is talking about. The league only reacts when it looks bad publicly, not when it's actually the right thing to do. And it's not just about officiating. It's about respect. It's about communication. It's about actually listening to the people who make the league possible. Stephanie White has been in the WNBA long enough to know the difference between real leadership and public relations talk. Kathy Engelbert, she's all PR. That's why veterans like Nafisa Collier and coaches like Stephanie White are pushing back now, because they've seen this story before, and they know it doesn't end well if nothing changes. The WNBA is standing at a crossroads right now. They have momentum. They have attention. They have stars who can actually move the needle. But they're also running out of patience, and Stephanie White just put that reality out in the open for everyone to see. Now here's something that might get overlooked in all of this. Stephanie White actually defended the league in a subtle way. She acknowledged that this chaos, this messiness, is part of the growing pains of becoming a mainstream professional sport. And she's right about that. No league becomes great without going through some internal drama. The NBA went through it. The NFL went through it. The difference is those leagues had leadership that actually learned from their mistakes and adapted. So the question now is, will the WNBA do the same? Because if they don't, these cracks we're seeing right now will turn into full-blown fractures that could tear the league apart from the inside. And here's the real kicker that should worry everyone involved. While all this fighting is happening, while players and coaches and commissioners are going back and forth, the fans are losing interest. All this behind-the-scenes drama is overshadowing what actually happens on the court. The basketball itself is getting forgotten. Stephanie White gets that. That's why her message is so balanced. She's not out here taking cheap shots at people. She's reminding everyone what's actually at stake here. The WNBA's credibility, its future, its ability to keep growing. All of that depends on how they handle their stars. And right now, they're doing a terrible job of it. Let's go even deeper for a second. Stephanie White didn't just defend Caitlin Clark in that interview. She low-key called out the entire system while somehow still sounding like the only adult in the room. When she said, "We are part of the growing pains of becoming a mainstream league," that wasn't just a throwaway line. That was a reality check aimed at everyone. The players, the owners, the front office. Right now, the WNBA is acting like a league that wants the fame and the money of the NBA, but is still running things like a high school athletic department. Think about it. Top-tier professional athletes are flying commercial. They're fighting over salary scraps. They're getting fined for speaking their minds. Meanwhile, the people in suits are taking all the credit when the ratings go up, even though it's the players doing all the heavy lifting on the court. Stephanie White knows this because she's seen both sides. She played in the league when it was barely hanging on by a thread. Now she's coaching during its biggest growth period ever. She's not anti-league. She's anti-nonsense. And when she says Caitlin is being used as a pawn, that's the most polite way of saying everyone is cashing in on her while pretending they're not. The WNBA has built this weird culture where everyone claims they want to support women's basketball, but only if it doesn't mean admitting that one player, Caitlin Clark, is driving most of the growth. They'll use her in every promo, show her face in every ad, mention her name every 5 seconds during broadcasts. But the second she gets too much credit, they panic. Oh no, she's getting too popular. She's overshadowing everyone else. But sorry, that's what happens when someone changes the game. Michael Jordan did it. LeBron James did it. Serena Williams did it. Now Caitlin Clark is doing it. And just like every other revolution in sports history, there's jealousy, fear, and power struggles happening behind the scenes. Stephanie White sees it all, and she's smart enough to call it out without burning every bridge in the process. The irony in all of this is that the WNBA doesn't know what to do with success. They finally have the attention they've been begging for. Millions of new fans, packed arenas, real mainstream hype, and they're wasting it with internal drama and tone-deaf leadership. And the funniest part, Kathy Engelbert is out here acting like she's the one who built the league into what it is today. Yeah, right. The league exploded because Caitlin Clark made people care. People started watching because of her games, her skill, her story, not because the commissioner gave another boring press conference about league sustainability. Every time someone points that out, Kathy acts like she's the victim. Oh, I'm so disheartened. Lady, you're not running a middle school. You're running a professional sports league. Act like it. That's the kind of fake leadership Stephanie White is talking about. Real leadership isn't hiding behind press releases and scheduled corporate meetings. Real leadership is standing up for your players when they're getting crushed online or disrespected on the court. Stephanie White has done that. Kathy Engelbert hasn't. It's that simple. And it's funny because all the people defending Kathy keep saying, well, she's a businesswoman. Sure, but being a businesswoman doesn't mean you ignore the basketball side of the job. Players like Nafisa Collier, Sophie Cunningham, and coaches like Becky Hammon are frustrated because they feel like the business side has completely taken over. They're watching decisions get made that might make financial sense, but make zero basketball sense. And you can tell it's all reached a boiling point because everyone is snapping in their own way. Nafisa gave a whole speech like she was campaigning for president. Sophie went full scorched earth on the microphone. And Stephanie White just calmly dropped a truth bomb that hit harder than both of them combined, because she's right. Caitlin Clark is being used by absolutely everyone. Let's break it down one more time so it's crystal clear. The league uses her to show sponsors they're growing. The media uses her name to generate clicks and views. The players use her as leverage in contract negotiations. And the fans use her as a reason to bash the WNBA every time something goes wrong. Meanwhile, all Caitlin wants to do is play basketball. She's 23 years old, and all she wants is to play the game she loves. But the politics swirling around her are completely out of control. Every single move she makes becomes a headline. Every expression on her face gets analyzed and dissected. If she smiles, people say she's fake. If she doesn't smile, people say she's arrogant. If she wins, it's because of favoritism. If she loses, it's because she's overrated. At some point, something has to give. And that's the warning Stephanie White is sending. She didn't just defend Caitlin Clark in that interview. She defended the entire future of the WNBA. Because if the league keeps treating its biggest star like a pawn instead of a person, it won't just be Caitlin who walks away. It'll be the fans too. And once the fans are gone, all the money, all the attention, all the momentum disappears with them. So what do you think? Is Stephanie White right about the WNBA's leadership? Is Caitlin Clark being used unfairly by everyone around her? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and make sure you subscribe because this story is far from over.